Last month, the BRICS countries held their annual summit in Kazan, Russia, where they announced a new payment system and development funding with non-USD currencies. They also invited 13 countries to join the club. Now, if you didn't hear about all this, it's not just you. It seems that the media wasn't keen to report on the growing ties between the so-called Global South countries and the challenge they could pose to the US-led world order. That's why today we're going to summarize what happened at the recent BRICS summit and tell you exactly what it could mean for the US dollar and for the future of the world. This is a video you don't want to miss. Let's begin with a quick recap. The BRICS is a club of countries including Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. On the 1st of January 2024, Ethiopia, Iran, Egypt and the United Arab Emirates officially joined the BRICS after they were invited to join last year. We'll come back to the new BRICS members a little later on though. Now, contrary to popular belief, the BRICS is technically not an organization. It has no official structure, no official headquarters, and doesn't even have an official website. If you've been keeping up with our coverage of the BRICS, you'll know BRICS may become an actual organisation, though, once it gets bigger. You'll also know that the BRICS countries established the new Development Bank, which is analogous to the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. For context, the IMF gives loans to developing countries, which often come with strings attached. The new Development Bank basically does the same, but with better conditions on its loans. The new Development Bank, also known as the BRICS Bank, is one of many initiatives that the BRICS countries have put together since the bloc was made official in 2009. Naturally, these initiatives have been announced at the BRICS annual summits, which have been growing in attendance in recent years. This year's BRICS summit was the first to feature the 4 new members and reportedly included top officials from an additional 32 countries, including the OG BRICS countries, of course. When you combine the populations of these countries together, nearly half the world's population was represented. To put things into perspective, the G7 countries only account for around 10% of the world's population. This is telling as it underscores the fact that most of the world is not on board with the political and geopolitical attitudes of Western countries. This is presumably why the Western media was largely silent about this year's BRICS summit. Most of the world is not on their side when it comes to key issues. More importantly, the number of countries that disagree with the US-led world order is growing. Nearly 50 countries are looking to formally join the BRICS, according to Wikipedia. This is due to a combination of factors, the most pressing of which is the increasing weaponization of the US dollar-based financial system. Of course, the watershed moment was Russia's assets being seized after its invasion of Ukraine in 2022. But in retrospect, this was just one of many instances where the US dollar financial system was weaponized against enemies of the US. Naturally, this has incentivized the creation of an alternative financial system. Key words there, alternative financial system. If you watched our recent video about the BRICS currency, you'll know that the BRICS are not looking to create a currency that will compete with the US dollar. Rather, they're looking to create a financial system that competes with the likes of SWIFT. To that end, the BRICS have been working on multiple pilots, such as mBridge, which is based on Ethereum's technology and uses wholesale CBDCs. At this year's BRICS summit, they revealed BRICS Pay, which can be simply understood as a direct competitor to SWIFT, no CBDCs. And it's just one of many major announcements that were made by the BRICS countries. And by the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. Hey everyone, sorry to interrupt the video, but I just want to very quickly tell you about the Coin Bureau deals page. This is the place where we put together all the amazing deals and promos that we're able to offer you guys exclusively as viewers of this channel. Head on over and you will find such things as discounts on hardware wallets, some seriously impressive trading fee discounts on some of the best exchanges, as well as some frankly mind-boggling sign-up bonuses for some of those exchanges too. The link is down below. Check it out when you have a moment. Thank me later. And now, back to the video. BRICS Pay has apparently been in development since 2018, but wasn't publicly launched until last month's summit. The official BRICS Pay website almost reads like a crypto white paper, probably because it's based on crypto-esque tech developed by a Russian university. Quote, "The Bretton Woods-era global financial system is undergoing a significant transformation. We are witnessing rising global debt, increasing wealth inequality, and the fragmentation of trade and finance systems. Our goal is to ensure equal access to financial technologies and global wealth, providing everyone with the opportunity to reach their full potential. Today, we begin building a new, fair, and decentralized financial system for the future." Per the BRICS Pay website, this financial system includes the BRICS Pay QR code app for retail users, the BRICS Pay B2B solution for institutional users, a digital currency that will be used within the BRICS Pay ecosystem, a traveller rewards program, and a system for the cross-border settlement of securities. Only BRICS Pay QR and BRICS Pay B2B seem to have launched, though, with the other 3 products still in development. And you can actually find a demo of BRICS Pay QR on the BRICS Pay YouTube. It's possible to download on Android and iOS devices without the app stores, and will soon be available via Telegram. Under the hood, BRICS Pay uses a decentralized network of nodes operated by a consortium of financial institutions, including banks. What's interesting is that its list of members is kept private. And this makes us wonder if it's possible that institutions outside of the BRICS are also participating in this network. This would explain why the IMF reportedly began asking questions about BRICS Pay shortly after it was announced. I'll quickly note that French banks have been working closely with Chinese banks to the point that it started to raise questions in the US, and it looks like UK banks have been involved too. Anyways, back to the architecture. Now, according to the BRICS Pay website, the network of nodes operated by the consortium can be configured to create both domestic and international payment systems called subgraphs. Wikipedia notes that BRICS Pay can process up to 20,000 transactions per second with 0 fees. On that note, the Wikipedia article about BRICS Pay suggests that it's currently limited to domestic transactions. This is further suggested by the fact that BRICS Pay QR currently leverages Russia's payment system only, something seemingly confirmed by Russian President Vladimir Putin in a press conference. Speaking of which, it was fascinating that the first question Putin got at his BRICS Summit press conference was about BRICS Pay. In his answers, Putin revealed that the new development bank was helping with the global rollout of BRICS Pay, something we predicted would happen in earlier videos. So, this begs the question of when BRICS Pay will be rolled out on a global scale. The answer can be found in the 2024 BRICS Business Council report on the BRICS Pay website. It looks like the goal is to have BRICS Pay available to all BRICS members by the end of next year, when Brazil will hold the BRICS chair. As a fun fact, Brazil has been one of the most vocal supporters of creating an alternative financial system for the BRICS. This would help explain why crypto adoption is so high in the country. However, the Business Council report notes that it was India which put together the BRICS Pay Task Force in 2021. In turn, the Kazan Declaration, which was adopted by all BRICS countries at the summit, includes a provision for BRICS countries to work together on making BRICS Pay international with the help of the BRICS Pay Task Force. Taken together, this suggests a full BRICS Pay rollout in the next couple of years. But back to the new development bank. Now, the only thing more fascinating than Putin's comments about BRICS Pay was the speech given by BRICS Bank President Dilma Rousseff. That's because the first thing she talked about was the high interest rates in the United States and the Federal Reserve's recent rate cuts. For reference, most of the world's debt is denominated in US dollars. When interest rates in the US rise, these dollar debts become more expensive. This is hard for individuals and institutions in the US, but is even harder for individuals and institutions overseas because their countries can't print US dollars. In practical terms, this means that local currencies often need to be sold for US dollars to pay the higher interest rates on dollar-denominated loans. Obviously, this selling causes the value of those currencies to drop. This creates very high inflation that hurts the economy, making it even harder to pay US dollar debts. If you've been keeping up with our coverage of the Federal Reserve, you'll know we've speculated on the possibility that it was raising interest rates aggressively to put pressure on Global South countries to ally with the US. Consider that there were a record number of IMF bailouts in late 2022 due to rising interest rates. I'll quickly remind you that all those bailouts came with strings attached. Regardless, we seem to be onto something because Dilma essentially alleged the same thing in her speech. The Fed is not raising rates to fight inflation, it's raising rates to crush America's enemies. She also highlighted additional pressures coming from things like Europe's weakness and the conflict in the Middle East. Dilma then revealed something crazy, and that's that the new development bank was facing serious financing issues before she took the helm in 2023. Since that time, Dilma has managed to raise over $12 billion for the BRICS Bank, most of which seems to have come from China and the Middle East. Logically, these funds will be spent on development in developing countries, and Dilma expects 10 of this $12 billion to be spent over the next year alone. Notably, the BRICS Bank is looking to give more development loans in non-USD currencies so that they're easier for borrowers to pay back. As such, the BRICS Bank is aiming for at least 30% of its loans to be issued in non-USD currencies in the future, and Dilma revealed that it's already close to hitting that target. Newsflash, but giving developing countries loans in their own currencies will make them more willing to play ball with the BRICS. This arguably makes the new development bank the most important part of the BRICS strategy, even more so than BRICS Pay or a potential BRICS currency. If you need evidence of that, look no further than the fact that Dilma was the first person who Putin met with in Kazan on the first day. Not Xi, not Modi, Dilma. Although their meeting was private, the BRICS Bank gave a summary of its contents on X. Quote, "Their discussions focused on local currency financing, the challenges of indebtedness faced by developing countries, and the need to expand BRICS to foster a more interconnected and financially stable Global South." Translation: their conversation focused on getting away from the US dollar in every possible way. This was reiterated in the summary of the meeting published by the Russian government, where Dilma told Putin, quote, "As you have noted, we have indeed implemented and allocated a substantial amount of funds towards a variety of projects. However, this remains insufficient relative to the needs of the Global South. Therefore, it's crucial to provide funding in national currencies and in specialized formats." Lo and behold, the Kazan Declaration contains a provision about the new development bank which specifies that it will focus more on local currency financing with the help of BRICS countries. It will also add more members to the BRICS Bank, which currently consists of 10 BRICS-affiliated countries. And this ties into all the countries that are getting involved with the BRICS. Now, the first one we need to mention is India, which might sound odd given that India is already part of the BRICS, the crucial I in the acronym. For those unaware, India has had some issues with other BRICS countries, mainly China, with whom India has had a long-running border dispute. Well, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with Chinese President Xi Jinping for the first time in 5 years at the BRICS summit in Kazan, and they managed to reach an agreement about that border dispute. Modi even met with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian about expanding trade between India and Iran. Now, this is extremely significant because India has long been perceived as being somewhat neutral in the geopolitical tensions between the East and the West. Some have even gone as far as to claim that India would be on America's side against China, precisely because of that multi-year border dispute. Modi's recent actions suggest the exact opposite is happening. India is deepening its ties with not just China, but Iran, which is one of America's #1 enemies. This might have something to do with the fact that the US and its allies have been putting pressure on India for working with Russia. The EU actually sanctioned India for the first time earlier this year because of its Russian partnerships. And this is where things get truly interesting. The fact that India is moving closer to China and Iran suggests that it doesn't care about the threat of sanctions from the US and its allies. The fact that Modi flew in person to Russia is further evidence of this. The same is true of every country that attended the summit. As mentioned earlier, this is because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but it's not because of the sanctions per se. You see, when the Western world started sanctioning Russia, everyone assumed that Russia would implode. This didn't happen, and by some metrics, Russia's economy is actually growing. From our perspective, this showed the world that it was possible to survive Western sanctions. In other words, it showed the world that the East doesn't need the West as much as believed. This is ultimately why so many countries are trying to join the BRICS. They're realizing it's possible to go their own way. As mentioned in the introduction, 13 countries are now under consideration for future BRICS membership. These are Turkey, Indonesia, Algeria, Belarus, Cuba, Bolivia, Malaysia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Thailand, Vietnam, Nigeria, and Uganda. They have all been added as partner states. Now, to refresh your memory, the BRICS also invited Argentina and Saudi Arabia to join the club last year, but the former declined and the latter hasn't decided yet. As another fun fact, Algeria is the only other country besides Argentina to decline a BRICS invitation, but there was a bit of drama in Algeria's case. TLDR, Algeria wanted to be invited to join last year, but wasn't, so it declined to join, well, at least for now. As for Argentina, it declined to join the BRICS after Javier Milei was elected late last year. Javier explained that this was because of differences in geopolitical alignment, and added that, quote, "Our geopolitical alignment is with the United States and Israel. We are not going to ally with communists." So this leaves Saudi Arabia, which seems to be somewhat on the fence. Some believe that Saudi doesn't want to join the BRICS because it doesn't want to distance itself from the US. However, a question asked at Putin's press conference by a Saudi representative suggests the real reason is a lot more nuanced. In short, Saudi Arabia wants BRICS to become a bona fide organization, not just a club of countries that hang out and give loans to their allies via a shared international bank. Oddly enough, Putin seems to be against this, as he noted that establishing an organization would create excessive bureaucracy. This makes us wonder if the real reason why BRICS isn't an organization has less to do with concerns about upsetting the US and more to do with the fact that it needs to move quickly if it wants to compete. This means making decisions between leaders directly, not indirectly via lengthy processes and bureaucratic wrangling, such as you might find with an organization like, the European Union. So, this brings me to the big question, and that's what all of this means for the US dollar and the future of the world. In case it wasn't clear enough, most of the world wants to de-dollarize, and that is bad for the US dollar. The thing is that this process is going to take a long time, and that's mainly because of all the US dollar debt. We can use Egypt as an example here. Egypt is the second largest recipient of IMF loans. These loans total $13 billion and account for almost 10% of the foreign debt it owes. Paying back these US dollar loans is next to impossible because Egypt has its own currency which has, not surprisingly, been collapsing. The only way Egypt could get out of these debts without sending its currency to zero would be to get more US dollars via other means, such as exports. This route would take a long time and could likewise be next to impossible if the interest rate on those US dollars is higher because of Federal Reserve policy. Egypt could ask for US dollars from other entities besides the IMF, such as the BRICS Bank. However, you'll recall that the BRICS Bank only raised $13 billion last year. It would have to give all of this money to Egypt just to pay off the IMF loan, and even then, Egypt would still owe US dollar debts to the BRICS Bank. Alternatively, Egypt could just opt not to pay back these IMF loans, but that would tank the credibility of its government. This would result in investors selling Egyptian bonds, causing interest rates to rise to the point that economic growth becomes next to impossible, all while inflation continues to run rampant. If you think about it, the only way that Egypt and other countries with large US dollar debts can pay them back is for the US dollar to lose its value. FYI, this is exactly what's been happening. Money printing, less use of USD in trade, and less use of USD in foreign exchange have been gradually eroding the USD's strength. This gradual erosion will continue to the point that all countries can easily repay their USD loans, but this assumes that they won't default on these debts or send their currencies to zero in the interim. It'll also require their economies to continue growing relative to the USD's strength and the Fed's interest rates. And this relates to the future of the world, which is where the BRICS play a fundamental role. As we've repeated in our videos about the BRICS, every country on the planet will eventually have to ask a critical question. Which do you need more, commodities or the US dollars required to buy them? If you're a country with lots of commodities, like Russia, then you probably don't need the US dollar as much as a country like Japan, which has next to no commodities and needs to import almost everything. But countries like Japan can choose to partner with commodity producers rather than USD printers. In case you haven't noticed, what all the BRICS countries have in common is that they are large commodity producers. This makes it possible to create a shared, commodity-based economy that doesn't rely on the US dollar. Eventually, this commodity-based economy will be stronger than the USD economy. However, this assumes that commodity prices will continue rising in the coming years. Now, this isn't guaranteed, but it is likely given how many people in the Global South are entering the middle class. When you recognize that your quality of life depends on how many commodities you can use, it becomes evident. Never mind the fact that commodity markets follow a historical cycle which suggests we're about to see a huge commodity bull market. If this scenario plays out, then it will eventually be possible for countries to shake off their US dollar debts and no longer be subject to the influence of the US and its allies. But again, this is a process that's going to take time, and it's one that will be marked by lots of chaos, but also lots of opportunity. Okay, that's all for today's video. If you found it informative, be sure to smash that like button. If you want to stay informed, then subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell. And if you want to inform others about the BRICS, then be sure to share this video with them. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. This is Guy, signing off.